Most conversations about mountaineering focus on altitude, but some of the hardest ascents are defined by something else: steepness. These 5 climbs tackle some of the most extreme mountain faces on Earth, from kilometre-high granite walls to the tallest mountain face in the world, rising more than 4 kilometers from base to summit. The first is hidden deep inside southern Greenland. Deep inside Tassermut Fjord, a system of deep, glacier-carved inlets in one of the least visited corners of the North Atlantic, Kilometre-high rises 1,858 meters above sea level. Its west face presents approximately 1,000 meters of near-continuous granite, consistently steep from the base through a headwall that becomes overhanging near the top. The rock is generally high-quality granite, similar in quality to other climbs on this list, but this one is the most remote. The classic route Moby Dick, first climbed in 1994, covers approximately 1,200 meters and can typically be climbed in 2 to 3 days. The lower slabs give way to a steepening central section, and the headwall at the top requires climbing on ground that tilts past vertical, with the fjord directly below and the nearest inhabited settlement many hours away by boat. Unlike many mountain faces, this route becomes steeper as it gains height. The reason Kilometre-high is so rarely attempted has as much to do with position as with difficulty. It sits in one of the least visited fjord systems on Earth, accessible only by boat along with no road connection to the outside world. The approach from the nearest airport takes the better part of 2 days in good conditions. Once on the wall, communication with the outside is limited and rescue infrastructure is essentially absent. The combination of technical difficulty and geographic isolation places Kilometre-high in a category of walls that are hard not just to climb, but hard to reach in the first place. The second wall is far better known and far more visited. That has not made it safer. The Matterhorn sits on the Swiss-Italian border above the town of Zermatt, and its outline is one of the most recognizable in world geography. A 4-sided pyramid of rock and ice, each face aligned roughly toward a cardinal direction. The north face is the most severe, approximately 1,100 meters of mixed gneiss and compressed snow, rising almost directly above the glaciers below. The face runs concave in its upper section, which means the terrain tilts past vertical and funnels debris down the line any climber would take. The north face was not climbed until 1931, 66 years after the first ascent of the mountain by the easier Hernley Ridge. The delay was not a question of will, it was a question of conditions. The face contains loose rock, stonefall, ice and mixed terrain, and the angle is steep enough that any fall tends to continue for a very long way. Conditions can change the character of the climb dramatically, from loose rock in warmer periods to extreme cold and storms in winter. More than 500 people have died on the Matterhorn since the first recorded fatalities in 1865, across all routes and all conditions. The fastest recorded solo ascent of the North Face was completed in 1 hour and 46 minutes. The North Face accounts for a significant proportion of those figures. A normal ascent of the classic Schmid route takes roughly 8 to 10 hours. The difference between those two outcomes is not simply a matter of fitness. It reflects what the face demands when every section is climbed with absolute precision. The third wall lies at almost the same latitude south of the equator as the Matterhorn does north, but its shape is completely different. Cerro Torre rises 3,128 meters above the southern Patagonian icefield, on the border between Argentina and Chile. The elevation is not exceptional. The shape is. Cerro Torre is a granite needle, narrow, nearly vertical from base to summit. At the top, the rock disappears beneath a permanent cap of rime ice that can reach tens of meters in height, formed by moisture-laden Pacific winds freezing onto the summit continuously. This cap must be climbed through to reach the true summit. The wall presents sustained difficulty from the lowest slabs to the summit mushroom. The angle rarely relents across the full height of the route. The granite is compact and well-featured, but reaching the top means dealing with the rime ice cap in conditions that change without warning. Climbers can wait weeks for a suitable weather window, and then exceptional windows might last a few days. Most attempts do not reach the top. The scale makes that geometry even more extreme. From the glacier, Cerro Torre rises as an unusually narrow tower rather than a broad mountain slope. Long sections of the major routes remain extremely steep, leaving few large ledges for climbers to stop or establish a comfortable camp. And above the granite, the summit mushroom adds a completely different type of climbing: steep, wind-formed ice. One odd fact about Cerro Torre is, a climber once hauled a petrol-powered compressor up the wall to drill bolts into the rock and bypass the hardest sections. Other climbers later came back specifically to remove more than 100 of them. The fourth wall is the most climbed on this list, the only one on this list to have been free soloed from base to summit. El Capitan is a granite monolith in Yosemite National Park, California. Much of the climbing follows cracks and other features in the granite. Its southwest face rises 884 meters from the valley floor in an almost uninterrupted vertical wall, one of the largest single exposed faces of granite on Earth. These qualities have made El Capitan one of the world's major testing grounds for big wall climbing techniques since the 1950s. For decades, the dominant question surrounding El Capitan was not whether it could be climbed, but how and by what methods. Aid climbing, placing gear into the rock and pulling on it to gain height, provided the first answer in the 1950s and 60s. Free climbing, using the rock features themselves while reserving ropes only for safety, came later. The concept of free soloing, climbing without rope, harness, or any protective equipment, was considered a remote possibility for most of El Capitan's climbing history. On June 3, 2017, Alex Honnold became the first person to free solo El Capitan via the freerider route, 884 meters of vertical and near vertical granite, completed in 3 hours and 56 minutes, without rope, harness, or any form of protective equipment. A fall at any point on the route would have been fatal. The ascent was documented by a National Geographic film crew and has since been described as one of the most significant athletic achievements recorded in climbing history. The freerider route, when climbed with full safety equipment, carries a technical grade at the upper limit of what most experienced climbers can manage and typically takes climbing parties 3 to 5 days. The final wall on this list is in a different category from everything that came before it. Nanga Parbat is the 9th highest mountain on Earth, at 8,126 meters, located in the Gilgit-Baltistan region of northern Pakistan. On its southern side is the Rupal Face, widely regarded as the tallest mountain face on Earth. The face rises roughly 4,600 meters from the Rupal Valley. The scale is difficult to appreciate from photographs. The Rupal face has roughly 5 times the vertical relief of El Capitan's 884-meter wall. A climber starting near the bottom is separated from the summit by an elevation difference greater than the entire height of the Matterhorn above sea level. And unlike the other walls on this list, the upper part of that enormous face continues directly into the death zone above 8,000 meters. That figure exceeds the total height of most mountains in the Alps, measured from base to summit, and it rises in a single connected sweep of sustained steep terrain. The Rupal face is steep throughout its full height, with ice fields, rocky buttresses, hanging glaciers, and avalanche corridors stacked above one another. Most high-altitude routes on 8,000-meter peaks follow ridgelines or glaciers rather than climbing directly up enormous mountain faces. The Rupal face offers no such option. It combines more than 4 kilometers of steep rock with snow and ice at extreme altitude, with no flat ground, no natural shelter, and no section in which the angle reduces enough to rest without anchoring. The first ascent was made in 1970 by Reinhold and Gunther Messner. They reached the summit, but Gunther Messner disappeared during the descent on the far side of the mountain. His remains were recovered 35 years later. In 2005, Vince Anderson and Steve House completed a new route up the central pillar of the Rupal face in 6 days, without fixed ropes and without supplemental oxygen. One of the most demanding ascents in Himalayan history.